Welcome to our final week, week 4. This I've labeled a bonus week just because I wanted to give you guys a few extra techniques while doing something a little bit more modern when it comes to the Star Wars universe. So I have not seen all of the episodes of The Mandalorian yet, but I have seen lots of pictures. And from what I have seen, I've already fallen in love with the art of the Mandalorian series. So the Razor Crest is quite a ship, and there's another ship that I really, really like as well. So I want to teach you today how to draw quickly. So sketching. The past few weeks, we've really taken our time. We've gone very, very slowly to really get out as many details as we can in the short amount of time that we had. But today, let's see what we can pop out by drawing quickly. So a lot of people will call this your impression. So the impressionists would look at something and they would jot down their impression of what they saw, whether it was the lighting, the shape, the values, the colors. So all of those elements that we learned about, textures, things like that, what impresses upon you first when you look at something? And we want to try to capture that as quickly as we can, just to practice, because Monet, many times he would paint several pictures in the exact same spot, just with the sun going down. Like he'd paint one and he might come back a next day and paint it again when it was rainy. He might paint one when the sun was up and then paint it again when it was going down, just to get the different impressions of the light of the sun that was falling in that area. So we're not going to do multiple pictures today, but I want to look at the Razor Crest, which I'm going to share my screen with you today. So the Razor Crest is obviously the main ship in the franchise here. So I want us to look at this. While I'm looking at it, I'm not going to draw a graph. Okay, we're not graphing today. I'm just going to look at kind of what speaks to me in this piece. Like, what is it about this that I want to emphasize? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. What do I want to emphasize in this? What is it about this that makes it iconic, that makes it an icon for this series? And as I look at this, I'm thinking the shape, right? There's not a lot of color on this. It's just a ship, right? But the thing that sets it apart as far as an element, number one, is its shape. It has a very triangular shape on this. Another thing that sticks out to me is the texture. It's very beat up. This is an older ship, at least from the picture I'm looking at right here. It's been around for a while. So, and like I said, I've not really seen too many episodes of this series just from lack of having Disney Plus. But hopefully I'll get to start watching it soon, and probably will have seen it by the time you see this video. But I like the texture and I like the shape. The third thing that I like about this are the engines. Like, I feel like I keep going back to those engines. So being it in this shape, I think the first thing I want to try to capture is the triangle. To try to capture the triangle. So, and I want to show you whoever designed this ship. I say, it seems like they knew what they were doing. So you've got your triangle shape with the two eyes here, right? And they're not eyes, they're engines, but it's almost like that's the first thing your eye really goes to, is just these massive engines. And in the triangle, they are pointing towards something else. What are they pointing towards? I just circled it for you, but they are pointing towards the cockpit because that is where they want us to bring our attention whenever this ship appears. Your attention is going towards that cockpit because that is the story. The story is the characters. You know, you've got your Mandalorian man, and you've got your child in the cockpit in this massive ship, you know, but the story is them. So your eye is drawn to just the mass of this ship, just the sheer size of it. And then the shape of the triangle narrows you in to the story in the cockpit. So that's why I like this ship so much. At first glance, I'm like, man, what a piece of junk, right? Like Luke says about the Millennium Falcon. It does look like a piece of junk, but whoever designed it for in an art perspective or a design perspective for this Mandalorian series wanted to put the emphasis on the teeny weeny little cockpit there, because again, that's the story. So that's my impression that I get from this. That's very deep, but that's part of art criticism. You're looking at something, and it's a ship, but it's not just a ship. It's something more. It's a story, and it's, in a way, its own character in this story. Everybody knows the Razor Crest if they've seen The Mandalorian. So let's go ahead. I'm going to draw quickly. I'm not graphing. I'm not graphing today. I've said that a million times, then I end up graphing. I promise you I'm not going to graph today. What we're going to do, let me go ahead and pin my paper here. Make sure I got that right. I'm going to do it again. There's so many times that I've done this and then not pinned it right and had to redo the entire thing. Okay, so I'm going to do this quickly. So I'm just going to do a brief sketch quickly. We're going to make this look nice and sketchy. And the last one we did with the Imperial Walker is a little more sketchy when it comes, you know, below here. And it's a little more detailed up here, but I still like that sketchy look. So when we do this, the first rule is you must draw softly. Okay, you must. And what I'm actually going to do, I have a really hard tip on my pencil. So what I'm going to do first is just scribble and break down that tip a little bit. If you have a dull pencil, you can go with that one. I have my dull shader, but I don't want to draw with this because it's a little small. I still like to. So I'm just dulling this out a little bit. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to accidentally draw too hard. So it's not completely flat, but it's also not so sharp that it's going to tear into my paper as I draw and make it difficult. I say that because, especially if you're new to what we're about to be doing, you may be tempted to draw fast and hard, and that's okay. This might take you a few times, and it's going to be really intimidating when you first see it, but I want you to see it, okay? I want you to see just getting that impression, and I want you to see where I start with doing these impressions. So, okay. And I want you to understand that I have drawn this piece before, but the last time I drew it, I graphed it. I have not done this piece in an impressionist type of way. So this is, doing this one is new for me as well. So here we go. I'm going. Okay. And I may not be doing much talking either. So I want you to just watch. I'm going to be doing more looking at my paper than I am. I'm sorry for the shaking. I'm just moving very quickly. So. interesting shapes. It's like a legitimate curl there. That's even more interesting. I like it even more. Impressionism is one of my favorite things, and I think it's one of my favorite things because I'm not really that great at it. It's something I look up to and ascribe towards, because I feel like if I'm not doing realism, I'm not a good artist. And it's not just making something look real that defines a good artist. It's showing something in a different point of view. Anybody can go outside and look at a tree, right? It's not, anybody can do that, okay? But looking at a tree from my point of view, nobody can do that. Nobody can see a tree the way you see that tree, you know? And that's where style comes in. That's where you use the tools and the impressions that you have of things and bring them onto the paper, you know? It's not that you're trying to improve it by doing other things. You're putting feeling into it, you know? How does this tree make you feel? You know, how does this, I know that's kind of silly when you think about talking about a Mandalorian ship, right? I mean, it's the rings of Crest. How does this make me feel? But you do. I mean, there's lots of definitions of art, but one of the things art does is it invokes an emotion. And you'll probably learn this in class. And there is an art movement called Expressionism, which its whole goal is to evoke emotion from people. I don't think this Razor Crest was necessarily intended to evoke emotion. The emotion is more so in the story itself and not necessarily in this piece. And you notice I'm not erasing. I'm keeping it clean in the sense that everything is contained in those shapes, but it's not clean as in fully erased, because this is going to be a nice sketch, okay? I have some of my reference off the page there. Okay, there's not much. Okay, so I have my giant engines here, and I think they look awesome. I'm super excited about it already. I think they are looking great. I love this swirl, so I'm going to emphasize that. And up here, I'm just squiggling in some shapes that I see. Just my eye is naturally seeing the angle that's happening here. I didn't draw those for them to be anything, but I just want you to see kind of the angle that's happening. The thing about doing this also is you realize, am I really seeing this correctly? You know, do my eyes need more training, or am I doing okay when it comes to my eye writing down the things that it's seeing? Because we do have the temptation to make stuff up. If you have seen this show a cajillion times, or you've just seen this one ship a million times, your brain will be like, oh, that's not the way it works, you know, and it'll try to trick you into doing it another way. But the good thing about the impression is you're looking and you're moving so fast, your brain doesn't really have time to critique you as you're going, okay? You're moving and you're just putting in some shapes. This is not about perfection. This is about impression. This is about looking at the shapes and putting the shapes in, okay? Looking at the shapes and putting the shapes in. Don't get hung up on too many details, okay? We're just trying to get it on there. Don't become frustrated. This is an exercise, okay? This is an exercise that, if we're all going to be honest, is going to turn into an excellent piece of art. And honestly, some people like impressions more than they do realistic drawings or renderings of things. To be honest, they really do. If you look at the artwork that's in most people's houses, they enjoy impressions because, again, you can go outside and see a tree, okay? There is nothing wrong with showing your skill to be able to do a perfect painting of a tree. That is a great skill to have. But once you get that great picture of your tree, it's then that you can take those skills and use them to show off the areas that you think are the most beautiful parts of that tree, the areas that speak to you most, you know. So as I go here, I'm gonna shade in some parts as I go, because this is a quick one. We probably not gonna have 2 videos of this. We're gonna do it for this one and we're gonna do it for the other. If this isn't, after you do this exercise, if doing this quick rendering is not something you want to do in the long haul, then you can most definitely go back and use the graphing techniques and other things that we've learned in this class to really make this realistic. If that is something that appeals to you, please feel free to go back and test yourself on the things that you've learned in this class. Okay? Scratching in those details that I love. I like the details, but I'm making them kind of my own little world here. So we already have a basic shape that I already really like. So now I'm just going back in and adding those details. Oh, I forgot the gun though, didn't I? Not right here. Scratching that little cylinder there. Coming out. One. We've got the other one over here. Just sticking out, coming out like that. There we go. We got some turrets. Pretty dark here in this cockpit. Putting that in there. And as I go, I'm still putting in my darkest darks, okay? But trying to leave those nice light spots. I also don't want this to be too polished because, like I mentioned when we were looking at it, this is a pretty scruffed up ship. So there's a lot with this that leaves to be desired, as far as it's not too hot to look at if you were in that universe. It's old. And I want to still give that old impression. So I'm probably going to color in these stripes here in just a few minutes. This strange shape down here along the bottom is also much darker. Over here is actually pretty light, but it's darker over here. think I've got the shape down where I want it. I really like it. Now that I've got the shape, just scratching in quickly little details that I see. Adding some shading around circles where I feel like it's necessary. The shading is mostly for me to highlight the lighter parts that I can see. That's really dark. It's really dark in there, so I want to emphasize that because this was one of my favorite parts. So I want to make sure that that is nice and dark. It's going to bring my eye up to that. Same over here. And back over here. Adding in those darks. See, I could technically stop right here and you guys would know what I was drawing, and that's the impression. I'm creating that impression there. Okay. I want to have that nice highlight strip coming down that's lighter than the rest. Coming around here, that's a little bit darker. This is already becoming one of my favorite drawings of this class. Just being free and knowing I'm almost done with it already. So let's see. Later on the top, so I'm going to erase a little bit off the top there. Making sure to color in all these areas here because I want that white to shine through in the areas that it's supposed to. All right, pretty sweet. This part is lighter, and the middle is darker. It's much darker under here. So coming back through, squiggling in that much darker on this side. Darkest darks around this gun. Won't add the color just yet. Just shapes and lines. Lots of shapes and lines. Patched together probably a million times. Only using my eraser to make sure I'm leaving some lighter areas. So sometimes you have to add the highlights back in if you draw over them. There. I'm very happy with this. So one thing you can also do is you can go back to the reference photos or any reference photo that you see and do it quick. You know, here we go. Razor Crest right here. I am so extremely happy with this. It just shows, it's just a different level. You know, it's a different kind of thing, you know. So, and if there's something that's not sticking out the way it should be, chances are it just doesn't have enough contrast. You remember the difference between the lighter parts and the darker parts. So go back in and make those parts darker, okay? Again, if you're not seeing the shapes that you want to see, go back in and you can either outline those spots or just, again, make them more contrast, make them a little bit darker. But there we go, guys. This is my impressionist version of the Razor Crest here. I look forward to seeing yours. And I look forward to seeing the areas that you emphasize on this to see. I'm very excited about that. I love to see you guys kind of branching out and doing a great job. So AED 2021 Razor Crest. Bam. All right, have fun with this one, guys.